Welcome to Senior Seminar, to the first online course that we've done in Senior Seminar. Today we're going to talk about we'll do some introductions and talk about some online learning. I'm also posting information about online learning in Blackboard. It's really important that you do sign in for Blackboard. If you're not very familiar with Blackboard, there are some online tutorials for you to learn about it. Also, we will review a little bit about the syllabus and discuss what we're calling module assignments. Now, the module assignments will be your assignments that you have to complete bi-weekly. All assignments will be due on Wednesday by 5 o'clock. This allows me time to kind of go over everything and give you some feedback. One of the first assignments, and this is really just to get you used to using Blackboard, we'll do an icebreaker, and that will be getting to know you. I want you to think of a word that best describes you or your life. I want you to post that word as the subject on discussion board. You will see a link there that says icebreaker or introduction. Explain why you chose that word in the body of the posting, and then describe your field placement hopes and your fears for field placement, and as well as respond to 2 other students that you don't know very well. I say that because in the online environment, it's really difficult to know the other students. So unless you take time to read their posts to get a good feel for them, it will be difficult to know them. Of course, you will have some of them in other classes, but we want to try this out for our online experience as well. There are some ground rules regarding online experiences, and it's the same as it would be in the classroom. You need to be respectful in all your posts, in responding as well as when you're making discussions. You want to maintain confidentiality. If a student is talking about some specific information or even personal information that they are sharing, we want to keep that within our course room. So this is not something that should be discussed outside the course room. Also, if you can think of some ground rules, I will have an open chat where you can list what are your ground rules that you think they should be. In reviewing the course syllabus, you'll see that our course objectives are that you interact with clients and colleagues in a professional manner. Most of you have been working before, so I'm sure that you are used to doing this. But you want to think about, how do your own personal values affect what might occur within your own agency? We want you to engage with clients, and including those who are unlike you. It's always important to be diverse. We always talk about cultural diversity and the importance of it and being culturally competent. Well, this definitely will give you an opportunity to explore other cultures that you may not have normally been exposed to. And remember, culture again is not just race, that's part of it, but also just the life experiences, the values, the beliefs of people. And in your field practicum, you really should have an opportunity to see many different values and beliefs and cultures. We'll have an opportunity to do some of the research that we say for self-evaluation, which are process recordings. You will do at least one process recording during this semester. So you have to, of course, we'll get towards near the end of the term before you actually will do your process recording, but you will have the opportunity to write down information. There is a form that we have available that you'll be able to use. And we'll talk a little bit more about process recordings when we get to that. Also, the way that you use supervision is going to be critical. You should always go into your supervision with an agenda. Don't be afraid to have your agenda prepared. As you go throughout your week, write down items from point to point that you want to discuss with your supervisor that you may not have had an opportunity to talk with them about, or that you may need some more clarity on. You want to understand that and identify ethical concerns. There are opportunities you may have within your field placement that you just question whether or not it is ethical practices or some of the policies or procedures that you may see others doing. And, that is something that we will also discuss during this. With your field information, you do have to do your learning contracts. There are some log of hours that you have to complete. Learning logs also, which we will have 2 learning logs within this course. You will also at the end do an evaluation, and we'll have you also do a self-evaluation as we get near the end of the semester. Another thing you have to think about is dress for success. Now, generally, if you have the idea of most agencies are going to be business casual, there are some that are really more professionally dressing, but you will find that out as you attend the agency and you start reading their policy manual. It is very important that you do go through the agency's policy manual. I don't care how boring it is, it's really important that you do that. You also want to figure out what your personal safety would be. If you're going to work at an agency where you have to go out into the field, you must be considerate about what part of town that you're in, who your clients are. If you're in a client's home, you want to make sure that you have easy access to the door. And what other kind of personal safety ideas can you think of as well? Also, for most agencies that you will be working at, you will have to know about HIPAA. So if you're not familiar with that yet, that's the Health Information Protection and Privacy Act. You want to make sure that you are aware of HIPAA and what the restrictions are. There are many different interpretations of HIPAA, so you want to make sure how your agency interprets it and follow their direction. As we are progressing throughout this semester, you will be doing some assessments and of clients that you're seeing, and also self-assessments. And assessment is really to describe, you would be describing, like, the first goal is to observe behavior and describe often in minutes, in minute detail, what was observed and objectively as possible. The second part of assessment is to explain. And while descriptions come from observable data, we must go beyond what is obvious and also explain their observations. In other words, why did the subject do what he or she did? Predict is a part of assessment, and once we know what happens and why it happens, we can begin to speculate what will happen in the future. There's an old saying which very often holds true: the last predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And I'm sure that some of you have friends that you can always tell, or even your significant other, you can tell about if a situation occurs, you pretty much can predict what their behavior is going to be. So eventually you will learn how that works with not only your clients, but also possibly your colleagues at your field placement. And control as far as assessment is concerned. And once we know what happens and why it happens and what is likely to happen in the future, we can exert some control over it. In other words, if we know you choose abusive partners because your father was abusive, we can assume you will choose another abusive partner and can therefore intervene to change this negative behavior and to help people understand why are they actually repeating that same type of behavior. The last step in assessment is to improve. Now, not only do social workers attempt to control behavior, they also want to do it in a positive manner. So we want to improve a person's life and not make it worse. This is not always the case, but it should always be the intention. And one of the ways that we try to improve their life is that we're always going to look from the strengths perspective. I just wanted to take a moment to review some social worker roles. We have many roles as social workers. And as you think of these roles and you look through them on your PowerPoint, I want you to think about, how do those roles kind of play out and what's going to be your part in those roles. One of them is enabler. We have to enable people to help themselves in order to do better. It's not necessarily that we are enabling them to stay in the same situation they are, as we talk about enablers for people with substance abuse or alcoholism. That's not the type of enabler we're talking about. We're talking about the one that actually helps them to move out of some difficult situations that they're having. The mediator. The mediator is going to help people to resolve or solve some problems that they may have. We're going to try to intervene to make things change. The integrator or coordinator. We often are called to put together certain either case plans or coordinate different kinds of services and things of that nature. And also, we may be the manager, one who we think about case managers that handle all aspects of the case. And that's what social workers might do as well. Also, as an educator, sometimes people just don't know. And if we have the knowledge that we can share with them, then that's going to be part of the way that we educate them. Also, an analyst and evaluator. Just as we were talking about assessment, we have to be prepared to look at the situation, do some critical thinking, analyze it, and then try to evaluate what we believe that the situation is about. Other roles are broker. And I'm sure you remember that a broker role as a social worker is that we're going to look for additional resources for people and try to broker those to make sure that they fit what the person needs. A facilitator, oftentimes we are facilitating meetings or we're facilitating groups. So that's another role that we play. Initiator, we often will have to start things in order to get them rolling. As a negotiator, we sometimes have to negotiate the services that our clients need. Or we also might be negotiating with clients to get them to start working towards the changes that they need to make. Mobilizer, again, it kind of goes along with negotiator, but we have to get things moving. We get things rolling, get the ball rolling. And also advocate. When we think about social justice for all, we really have to consider being an advocate. And if you remember from last year, there's case advocacy where you may be working with one person, or class or cause advocacy where you could be working with a group. Another thing that you have to think about during your internship is really using your critical thinking skills. I'll never forget when my sister told me that after I had gotten my bachelor's degree, she said, "Yeah, you might have a lot of book sense, but you don't have any common sense." Well, when you think about it, using your critical thinking skills is really developing that keen common sense. And there's a AAA approach that even Kirst Ashman talks about in her book. There's a AAA approach. The first one is to ask questions. That's the first step in critical thinking. You want to ask questions. What is the situation? The who, what, when, where, how. Also, you want to assess the situation, and you'll do that by observing and as well as asking the questions. And then number 3 is you want to assert your opinion. How do you see the situation? So your first assignment for this introduction will be to review the NASW Code of Ethics. I want you to choose 2 of the ethic articles that are within the code, and also write a brief summary. Lastly, I want you to describe if your agency actually follows them. You will see a link on your discussion board for the assignment for the introductions. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to give me a call.